Yelling for my kid to win in a non-competitive situation. Hi, I'm Carole Podell, and this is She Takes the Lead. Hi, party people. It's Carole. I hope you guys are having such a good day or night or whatever it is. I feel pretty pumped right now. Not sure why. I'm jazzed that I get to talk to you. So I'm sending my daughter to camp this summer, like a day camp. It's beautiful. We did like a tour of it. They take us, we're in the city, obviously. So, for those who live in the burbs, I know that camp is not really as much of a thing, but like as a city kid, I mean, obviously you need childcare in 2024, but as a city kid, you don't really, we have Central Park and we are so fortunate that we are so close to Central Park and Riverside Park, really. But like, you don't get the same kind of relationship with nature and experiences, obviously, because you're, in a city. So summer camp is a thing and day camp is a thing. And I feel very lucky, very blessed. I feel like my kid is very lucky that she's going to go to camp. I'm sending her to camp this summer, to a day camp somewhere out in Westchester, like a half an hour away or whatever. And we did a tour of it last weekend. And it was really fun. Like, first of all, everybody looks so young. It is a weird thing when you do not feel like you're aging, but everybody else suddenly just looks young. Anyway, the kids that were like taking us up, the counselors, right, who were like, I guess maybe high school and early college, I guess, they're all former campers, right? And we're coming out, we're driving up on a bus. It's families. So it's like myself, my kid, we have some friends and their kids that are going. So we all kind of collectively made a decision to go to the camp together, to send the kids together, to go to this tour together, and they're like doing cheers on the bus that are way too loud for grownups to have to deal with. But it was really fun. My daughter is still like trying to remember the cheers, and she's like working out now how she's going to hold her stuffy and also clap during the cheers when she's on the bus. I mean, it really was such a good move by the camp to like give us a tour of this camp. But this camp is gorgeous. I mean, I went to sleepaway camp. I went to day camp also, but like I don't really remember it. I went to sleepaway camp and it was a beautiful camp. It was like a horseback riding camp. It was I guess the 70s or the 80s, I guess. 80s. It was the 80s. And it was like a hippie camp. I mean, to the extent that it was a hippie camp was that I, in fact, know every Beatles song. Like I know all the words to all the Beatles songs, but did not, and this is very embarrassing as a singer and a musician, I did not, in fact, know that the Beatles wrote, nay, played those songs, recorded them until I was in high school in a friend's car and she'd just gotten a CD of the White Album remastered. And suddenly I'm like singing all these songs and I have no idea why, but it's because they were like all the counselors were playing them on guitar and we were singing them. These were our campfire songs. Okay, that's an embarrassing moment, but there we have it. Anyway, back to camp. So I went to, camp like that, but this is like next level camp. I mean, it's beautiful. It's a little bougie, I'm not going to lie, but it's also like honestly, who cares? This is why I work for a living. Like literally there's two pools, there's like a water slide, there's a garden, you can garden, there's like different bunks, that have like jewelry making and crafts, and there's a tennis court that I think they're doing pickleball on. Hilarious. And there are these Gaga pits. Now, I don't know if you probably, unless you have like a child between the ages of, I don't know, 5 and 12, you may not know what a Gaga pit is, but basically Gaga is a game for kids where they're in like an octagonal shaped sphere, a pit, like a little area. It's probably like, I don't know, a circumference of like 15 feet maybe. And they kick the ball to each other and or throw the ball to each other and try to get each other out. And it can be very gentle with little 5-year-olds, and it can be very not gentle with like 12-year-olds. I've seen it both ways. I saw this for the first time when I was like looking at schools for my kid. And we went to like a fair, right? And it was like a spring fair or whatever. And they had a Gaga pit. And I was like, oh my God, this is so not something. I mean, it just gave me like bad hot flashes of like, dodgeball and like just getting out, or like all of that awful feeling. Um, and it really just didn't look fun. But I don't really want to get smacked in the face with a ball. So, some people may. So there are two of those down this hill, right? And it's a whole bunch of us, like I said, like of my friends. Like, so the kids are friends, the parents are all friends. We all went together, and we're all sort of roaming around, and we're pairing off, or then we're back in a group with like the kids that know each other. And we kind of all went down to the Gaga pit to like see what was going on. It's a little further down in the woods. It was really nice. And my daughter gets in the pit to start playing. I have never seen my daughter play sports really. Like, and that's not because she doesn't, she just has after school stuff and that kind of thing. So like she's not whatever sport she's participating in, I'm just not witnessing, right? And what's kind of fun is that my daughter's actually pretty, I guess I was too, but she's a coordinated kid, and she's always like, I mean, this was hilarious. Before COVID, I guess she was like 1.5. I guess we would take walks through the park in Central Park, like early in the morning if she woke up early, and we'd be walking. I'd have the dog, and I remember at some point she loved to kick the ball. At some point, and she was in like one of those little baby super soccer stars classes at some point. Anyway, she was really good at it, and I remember in the park back when, like 1.5, and she got a ball, or we had a ball. I don't remember how she ended up with the ball at her feet. And she was like running and kicking it and running and kicking it and going all the way down. There's like a walkway that wraps around the whole area of the Great Lawn. And she was just kicking it and kicking it and kicking it. And I was just enjoying it. I mean, it was kind of, like a lovely day. And she'd been walking for, I don't know, a couple of months at that point, not that long. And I literally had two soccer moms sitting there tell me how good she was and that I should get her into soccer because she'd be really great at it. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, I want to support her in whatever she might want to do, but also like, okay, she's 1.5, we can chill. Anyway, she's pretty good at that stuff. But she's not like, she actually was in a soccer class that I put her in, and she actually asked me to take her out because she didn't really like it. So I'm not, one way or the other, it's not really about whether she's good at it. It's really about what she likes. Anyway, she hopped into this Gaga pit, right? And she starts playing, and I'm enjoying watching it. We're all watching it. The kids are like different ages, and they're being gentle with the younger kids, or they're not with the older kids, but nobody's being like really crazy. And in the process of it, my daughter, a couple people ended up getting out. And if you get hit with the ball without like receiving it, you get out. So then, I'm watching this and I'm proud momming or whatever, but like, and I'll preface this with, I am not a particularly competitive person. I'm hugely competitive with myself, and probably arbitrarily competitive in certain situations, but I have never been like a competitive team sports type competitive person. Like I've always been, I never played on team sports really. I was a swimmer. I was in varsity swim, but like, it's just me really. And I was in the theater, so you're team building, but it's very different, right? It's not competition. You're actually building it together, and then you're not like going against another team. You're just going out onto the stage. So that piece is never there. In that way, at least. So I'm watching her, and it's just her and this other kid. And, we're just enjoying it. And all of a sudden, she does some move deliberately, and gets the kid out. And I literally, my arms went straight up into fists, and I went, yeah. And I was mortified, mortified. I turned around. Thank God, my friends love and adore me, because I looked like a psycho mom. I looked like a crazy person, and I was so utterly embarrassed. I actually walked away because I couldn't even deal with myself. It was just the most embarrassing thing I've ever like really done in like a funny way. I it was just like the worst soccer mom coming out of you could ever imagine. And it was like a come to God moment because I loved watching her win. Like loved it. If I'm being honest, like I wanted her to do that, and I really enjoyed seeing her enjoy the self-esteem or the self-confidence or just the charge of achieving something and maybe being better than the other kid. I'm not sure. I have to think about that more, but it was like such a moment of like, you got to look in the mirror now, Podell, because like I want to be the best at what I want to be, but I also like, it for a long time. Well, first of all, I have anxiety. Okay, so when I was an actress and a singer, like, you audition, and I had such anxiety to audition. If I didn't have to audition, or if by some chance I was like not nervous for the audition, I honestly would book it or at least get called back with consistency. The anxiousness really was debilitating for me. So like that obviously doesn't make like competition in the theater in that way like a good experience for me. Some people really like that too. They get jazzed by it. And I actually feel it to be almost paralyzing at times, right? So watching her experiencing that, it's such a different lens that I'm looking through because now it's not about me, right? And it's not about my limitations or my lack of confidence or the pressure that I would put on myself to achieve or be great. And I definitely do that. And then the healthy, and that's the big word, healthy competitive streak in your system. And I know people who are very, very competitive and are healthily competitive. They're not competitive in everything they do, but when they're in a competitive situation, they rise to the occasion. If I'm in a competitive situation, I struggle to go between wanting to win and having us all win. I will give you an example, and this runs deep. Like I said, I was a swimmer. There was a swim team when I was in grade school. So it was probably like second or third grade, and I was good at it. And I swam a race and I won. And I don't really remember this, but my parents have told this story more times than I care to admit, that I got out of the pool and started crying because I felt bad for the other person who had lost. Now, that's not healthy, just so we can clarify that. That is not a healthy kid in that way. I feel bad for that kid too. I mean, me, that kid, not the other kid. Because wouldn't it have been cool if I could have enjoyed that moment? You know, wouldn't it have been cool if I could just have enjoyed that moment? Not a defining moment like it's not like I'm going to the Olympics based on that one swim meet, but from an experience of like feeling the joy of winning because you put in the work, you know? And I loved watching my kid. I mean, again, my reaction to my kid winning was just mortifying as a mom, but I really enjoyed her experiencing it because she was really happy when she won. She was really happy when she won. She had a big smile on her face. I'm sure if I asked her about it, she probably wouldn't even remember at this point. It wasn't like a momentous moment for her. But for me, it was such a like, it was just, I just startled me. I want her to be who she is. Like, I think you can ask most parents. We all kind of have, I think if in the midnight of our soul, we all have like that piece where like all the things we didn't get to do, we kind of want them to be able to do and succeed at. I think that's true. I don't think I'm alone in that. But ultimately and far more deeply, I want her to be who she is, and I want her to be good at what she's good at, not what I wanted to be good at. I don't want to like give her my issues. I want her to have her own. So I want her to be competitive and I want her to feel the joy of competition. I did not. And I mean, I've competed too. I mean, again, not in team sports, but like I ran a marathon. I ran the New York Marathon in 2011. I had never run a race before in my entire life. I'd been practicing yoga most of my life. And I was in good shape, and I really trained hard. And I was working overnight at ABC at the time at Good Morning America, and then training at very odd hours. I had a friend who was really helping me train, called her my marathon mommy, and and I worked my ass off, and I was really proud of myself that I made it through. But I very much mentally took the pressure off myself before I even began, because basically, in order to get into that marathon, I raised money, and I was really proud. I raised, like, I don't know, almost $5,000 for a charity, for music education, and it got me into the race, and I finished. But there were two stipulations for me to run it, one of which was I was not going to hurt myself. So, I mean, I'm sure anybody who knows anybody who's run marathons, one or more than one, you can hurt yourself pretty badly. So I was very careful and didn't want to, like, put myself into a situation where I was going to hurt myself, obviously. So I focused on that a lot. And I said, if I hurt myself, I'm not going to run it, but I will just continue to raise the money, and that will be the win. The other piece was I didn't have, like, a time, like, I'm going to run a sub 9-minute mile or whatever, 10-minute mile or whatever the thing is. I didn't really have that. And I frankly kind of regret it. Not because, I mean, honestly, the first 10 miles of the marathon, especially if you've never run a race, are extraordinary, because all you're seeing are a sea of people, and you're told to put your name on the back of your shirt, and people start yelling your name, so you start, like, turning, and it takes a lot of energy and focus off your run, which is a long run, to, like, see these people or wave or even just mentally acknowledge that they're there. And so for the first 10 miles, I took a long time to run the first 10 miles. And then also, I was exhausted after that 10 miles, because I think I had not prepared myself, like, emotionally, to zone out enough. And it took me almost 6 hours to finish this fucking marathon. I mean, to the point where, and I have such supportive friends and family. I'm so grateful. Like, they were all waiting out there, but, like, to the point where they had made signs, and they had turned the signs over and written, "Where is Carole?" Like, it took a long time. People, after I ran the marathon and finished it, were like, "Oh, well, it was almost like you walked it." I could walk it. Like, first of all, like, go run a marathon or go do a marathon first, and then tell me. It is hard regardless of how fast you go. But yeah, I didn't go fast. And I didn't really give myself that competitive piece. And I feel like it's a wiring thing, and I don't really love that about me. Like, I mean, it is what it is at this point. And the truth is, now I'm much more conscious of it, so I'm much more like, I think, just from self-awareness, like, I pinpoint a moment where I see somebody doing something, and you wish you could be doing that because you do it well, if that makes sense. And then I see, like, I can see myself doing that, and then I can see myself doing that really well. And I think there's something about the visual, about your, like, imagination, and really putting yourself in those scenarios. And I don't think that I did that as a child. I didn't really run with my imagination that way in this kind of arena. I mean, in my mind, I had won a Grammy and a Tony and an Oscar and an Emmy, and all the things. I have won an Emmy with a lot of other people, but and nominated for one, but that's the extent of it. And that was ironically from Teamwork, which I think is pretty cool now that I'm thinking about it. That was for working on 9/11 or Y2K, and that was teamwork with the whole, with all of us working together at ABC. Right. So that, working in television production, is also, it's a lot of teamwork, and it's a lot of high pressure. That's also kind of funny, because all of my jobs have been high pressure role jobs. You're out live on the stage. Then I was live in television. Then I left into financial services and worked at a hedge fund. And I wasn't in the hot seat in my role, but I'm around all the people that are in the hot seat, who are, like, trading billions of dollars. It's a lot of pressure on a person to choose that, to walk into that as their career. I mean, the reward is gigantic also when you do that, but there is high risk, and it is a lot of pressure, because it's not your money. And as a result, I've met a lot of people, often, especially in the hedge fund world. There were a lot of people who were like college athletes, or minor league athletes. Like there are a lot of people who are in that industry that are their competition runs deep, like really deep, and it's part of what motivates them. Maybe I am more competitive than I think, and I've just been suppressing it for a long time. It's funny, like now that I'm trying to raise this kid, and I'm trying to like give her the best I can in terms of her, what she's gonna learn, what she's gonna do, how she's gonna treat her experiences and herself and her relationship to others. Now I don't want her to be competitive with her women friends. Like I want her to feel warm and fuzzy with them, and with her men friends too. Like I don't want, god forbid, she ever competes for a guy. Please don't. I mean, have I done that? Yeah, I have done that, and I got the guy actually. But I've also done that and not gotten the guy, so it sucks both ways, really. Fortunately, the person I was competing with, it was not a friend, just another female. But I digress. I really want her to have a knowledge in her body of competition and the joy of winning and the emotional push ups of losing, and the confidence that losing is where you also get experiences and it's character building. And it's funny to like sort of say that out loud. It may not be earth shattering to anybody else, but for me, that's kind of a big one for me. I have a friend who her daughter's like in her 20s now, but she never let her daughter win in sports. I'm not talking about in life, but in sports, she never let her daughter win. And her daughter is a kick ass athlete. She's not a professional athlete. Nobody's talking about like how to make your kid a professional athlete. I'm just saying, like, her daughter has a very healthy perspective on competition and on winning. And I think it mostly serves her, from what I understand, It's funny when you're like raising a kid and you're raising them to be different than you. It's not just because you don't want them to do your fuck ups. It's actually less so that, I mean, that definitely exists, than that you see, I see all of this potential in this person. You know what I mean? Like I see all of the possibilities in this person, from what she's learning to how she's functioning, how she's playing with her friends, how she's processing information and feedback, and how she's interacting with animals, with our dog or with other animals, or her perspective on sharing. And there's so many different pieces, when you're like raising your child, that you're watching grow. A lot of that is in their wiring, and then a lot of that is definitely like upbringing. And ultimately, the needle, you're just moving the needle a little bit. Like you can't really, like, I mean, I don't think, at least, I don't want to push her so much that it's like such a left turn, but you try to move the needle and I try to show her in the best way that I can the things that I know about myself that I deem maybe not great, or that I would like her to have differently. I try to like model. I sound like a child psychologist. I am not, but I guess yeah, I guess I do. I try to model that that's a good thing. So like me yelling, yeah, go, when she won. I don't actually fundamentally think there was anything wrong with that if we were in the right place. Like if she were in even in that Gaga pit and there were like a lot of other kids and they were all kind of playing around, and there were parents that were also sort of in that same mindset that I was in, I feel like that would have been an appropriate reaction. It was just like me siloed in my own little vacuum of a world, watching her as little Carole finally winning a dodgeball. Like that's probably what happened. Oh God, what about unpacking? Life is so complicated. Oh my God, it's like suitcase after suitcase after suitcase. It's like those little Russian dolls. It just gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And it just keeps going and going and going. It really did give me such a funny perspective on my own level of competition and my own ability and desire to compete, which I have leveled up now. My desire to compete is that I want to put myself out into the world, and I advocate for that. I want my friends, I want you, I want anybody who's listening, I want even the people I don't like. The experience of putting yourself out into the world and like taking that risk and just giving it your all and potentially winning and potentially losing, but knowing that you gave it your all is such a special, important experience. It can be scary and you cannot know your level of what you can do, and that's part of it. I mean, I now physically and mentally push myself so much further since I ran that marathon. And same after I had my kid, like what I can, in terms of giving birth, I understand that what I can endure is far greater than what I think in my mind I can endure. And on a good day, I feel like a pretty tough woman, pretty strong woman. But, that's from, I guess, these kinds of mental reviews around why I'm yelling for my kid to win in a non competitive situation. Oh, God. Hey, thanks so much for listening. If you like what you heard, please hit subscribe. Also, if you want to keep in touch, go to Insta at About a Blonde or Facebook at About a Blonde Official. Also, you can sign up for my mailing list at www.aboutablonde.com. Have a great day. Mwah!